we've only just begun. And yes, we've just begun.
Hi. I can't wait to talk about the context of wrapping up most of your day for you, if that's cool. We need a couple more smoke machines. We need to choke a little bit more this afternoon, which would be great. I hope people stayed away from the turkey sandwiches, so let's get on with it. I'm David. Here's the deal. What I would like to do today is talk about this, the new renegade, the consumer. Because here's the deal, man. The question, I think, on most people's minds are we clear on what people are up to? The answer is absolutely not. We're confused. I went to the Bennett's Biennale. That is the bag that everybody walks around town with. And what I love about this particular thing is it tells you, as much as we've got all this shit, we still don't know who the hell we are. And what's amazing for me is that a lot of us actually grew up in the world of the TLAs, the three-letter acronyms like this, FYI, like this sort of stuff, right? But you saw from this morning, there's a lot more of this. YOLOs, bless them. And you've got this, the FOMOs. And then you've also got this, which you all know. It's too long, didn't read. So these little shits are using four-letter acronyms to tell us to piss off. But what I think is interesting, by way of introduction, this is where I'm from, if you can't tell from my accent. I'm Aussie. That is the town I'm from. That's the house I grew up in. I'm actually one of 10 kids. So there's 12 of us in a two-bedroom house. Lots of therapy. That's me on the left. Sweet 16, never been kissed. But what was interesting for me, I'm of the generation of this. When you bought your first car at 17, that's when you had freedom, independence, and self-expression. By the way, I'm a prophet because I was the first planker on the planet. But what's interesting also is this. I don't have children, but 37% of children under the age of 2 can operate your swiping devices. 37% of them. And when they go to analog, they don't know what to do with it, do they? How good is that? Can you watch that all afternoon? Yes, please. Genius. And here's what's interesting. We're just one click away from the most interpersonal thoughts. And you know this, that personal expression is the new form of entertainment. But here's what I think is interesting. It's no longer about consumers consuming content. It's about this. They are now the creator, the curator, and the critic of content. So, given that's the case, they're swarming to these bright lights, aren't they? And there's more of them coming, much more. And it looks a bit like this for me. The world is changing. And really what it's about is definitely art and science. But the real true value of the digital networks, in my mind, is that your audiences that you've accustomed and amassed now have an audience. So that's the real physical thing that we just need to appreciate, and that's the behaviors we care about. But what are these renegades up to? Well, I believe that we're part of the new generation. The Charlie Chapmans of our generation are right now. They are the renegade, they're the free thinker, they're the extrovert, and they are absolutely the revolutionaries. More access, more tools, more capability, more confidence than I've ever seen from any generation before. And I think the world's going to move beyond selfie. I think is one thing we need to discuss, because when I Google selfie, this is the sort of shit I find. How about those? Woo! Brilliant. Smart dog. But here's what's interesting, and have you seen this thing? Check this thing out. What was interesting is that while we're all watching the Sochi Olympics, there were guys and gals in their dorm rooms doing this sort of stuff, man. They come up with these incredible experiences based on just selfification. They go to great lengths to get these amazing selfies. Look at this damn thing. That's the tallest building in Hong Kong, my friends. How crazy is that? Doesn't that make you want to throw up your cup of tea? We love to celebrate originality at AOL, by the way. About 89% of our content's original. And what I think is interesting is this. The generation that we've talked about this morning, that I've heard about today, is the connected generation. Do we think they're a throw-up generation? Absolutely not. Do we think they're the me generation? Actually, no, they're the we generation. Because here's what's interesting. They don't give a shit about social anymore, my friends. But if they do, it's for good, social good. And actually, they care more about privacy. So as the network grows, these masses of your audiences now have audiences, the thing that they really care about is privacy. That's why these closed networks of instant stuff is really coming really popular. And what's also fascinating, like this, I don't know if you guys have visited this, I know where your cat lives. So when you go and post out a picture of your cat, you tag where it is, dude, I know where you live, man, because your cat's there. So that's the sort of stuff we have to worry about when we talk about privacy. I didn't hear anybody talk about that this morning, but that's careful for me. And here's what's also interesting. They love to achieve happiness. They want to be spending time with family and friends. They also want to be true to themselves, and guess what? They want to be financially stable. So there's a piece of research we did at AOL. Guys, get your hands on it, because here's what's interesting. that connected generation have the same values, and we've heard value many times today, as your grandparents, not the parents. So that's where it becomes different. That's our behaviors. That part of it hasn't changed. They have the similar behavior. But they are really interesting from a breed because they're 72% say they're super busy, fear of missing out, no doubt. They also get most of their information by feed, so it's a little ADD. But they're going to represent a big budget for us, $2.45 trillion by 2018. They're going to represent 75% of the workforce by 2025. So we have to look at this audience seriously. So what? So what, creatives? Who gives a rat's? Well, here's the deal, man. Let me just say this. Adobe did a really good survey recently, and they asked the creative community, what do you think? Do they believe that these are the best days to come? So quick show of hands. Who believes that the creatives said, 42% of them said the days are yet to come? Nobody? What about 51? 67? Okay, 88? Yeah, amazing, hey? Shit. How about this? How about those creatives that trust their gut? Let's go 89. Yeah, 25%. 79. 64. 52. You guys are all over the map. I love it. 79%. How about this? Tech. Tech gives them control. 91%. Ooh, interesting. 86. 75. Yeah. 57. Yeah, we're kind of there. Here's what's interesting. I think what we need to talk about is where that goes. Because here's the challenge, right? If you get your content strategy right, it doesn't just compete with advertising, which is what we're seeing. It competes with popular culture, which is what I think you've heard today. If you get your content strategy right, you're competing with popular culture. But it means that creativity has to be redefined, because here's the deal, man. Whenever you go to a publisher, the first thing we do as a brand, we say, what are you going to do about building evergreen content, stuff that never expires? Then how do you build seasonal content? Shit that allows you to actually capture the hearts and minds of people, and they bulk buy your products before they buy your competitors. That's seasonal content, you know that. But the new is this, man, right now. The now. But what's fascinating about that is brands are trying to own breaking news, aren't they? So here's an example. So just recently, we've had the Bengate, for those of you walking around with an iPhone 6 in your back fat pocket. This is the one that I thought was quite interesting. Kit Kat just threw that out immediately. Genius. How about this? Curve, not bent. Lovely. How about this? LG, flexes on purpose. Kind of cool. I like Heineken's. How about that? No worries. It happens to all of us. So here's what's also interesting. You guys love telly, and I think the brand attention curve still looks a bit like this. You talk about stuff before, then boom, it spikes when we buy around these peak times, which we love tentpoles still, and then boom, we treat people like a one-night stand. The next day, you don't speak to anyone. And I think we need to open it up so it's a bit more like this, the before, the now, the next. And why I think the next is important is you can get the calm and the chaos. Capture the hearts and minds of people while it actually is a less chaotic time than tentpoles. All right. What does this mean? It means good news for us in the digital world, because digital is the first and only place you can actually own original breaking news. You can't do it on newspaper, radio, print, television. Too many gatekeepers. With digital, you guys have a direct dialogue with your audiences, which is the key to it, right? Because audiences live, communicate, and get information fundamentally differently today. And what I think is interesting is these ideas that are coming to us, big, new, fast, isn't really coming from the brand or the agency or the publisher. It's coming from the consumers, because that's what they're expecting of us, aren't they? And what's also fantastic is this transparency world we're in. So if you're going to embrace this new world, the world of transparency, what does it mean? If everything is transparent, what can we do? Well, here's a brand that tried it. Pedestrian type of commercial, and it backlashed. People became really negative on that value. They've turned that into this commentary of love, and their sentiment went through the roof. So if you are going to be transparent, you have to react in real time and take the positives and the negatives and lean in, and it can work for you in amazing ways, even if it's a pedestrian brand. Also understand that humans, one thing that will not change, 75% of our purchase decisions are made emotionally. And then we justify those purchases rationally. It doesn't matter whether it's a $5 bottle of water or a $50,000 car. That's just the way we are. And people's behaviors are actually influenced by our peers. And what's interesting about that, though, with all these digital rivers we've talked about today and all of these screens that have been talked about today, people will still only refer 5 to 9 brands to people physically per year. So that's the stuff that we need to do. That's the cut through that we need to think about and talk about here. Now, the context that matters is this. Build good content, put it in smart places. Sounds easy to do, really hard to do, because we grew up in the world of information, didn't we? And now we're in the world of social. And this is always my all-time favorite social image. Now, doesn't that sum up everything about today? Holy shit, dude. And here's what's also interesting. Too many brands still treat things a gland grab for likes. That's their KPI. Well, I think likes are rubbish. Because back in the day, before Tim and I wanted to be friends, you have to accept my friend request. There used to be a skin in the game. Now you can like my shoes, my belt, my bag, my jacket. You don't have to like me as a whole, but I love the verbs that are coming. Want, purchase, desire, sympathize. Nobody wants to like somebody going to a funeral. So you need to lean in on those. The one I love most is share. 70% of consumers shared something. So I think what's really interesting about that, however, is the world is completely overwhelming. There's 1,900 media messages per day, and 250 of those are ads. And then it becomes underwhelming because I can't find what I'm looking for. So if you think about this fear of missing out culture that we are part of, one of the largest contributors to stress today is media. Media overload, the stuff that we're building is actually killing people. We need to consider that. But tastes are changing. Contrived in-your-face advertising, doesn't work. So think about presence. Can you be the calm and the chaos? Can we not look at click-through rate and look at something else as a new currency? I believe in attention. 24 hours in a day is not going to change, but how you apply that 24 hours is the thing that will change. So, digital behaviors are also changing. You guys have been in this game, entertainment and information, for a trillion years. The new is be useful. Can you be useful to somebody's day-to-day patterns? That's what brand utility means, and it's all about this. You heard that today. 130%, you over-index here in the UK on mobile connections. Mobile is about 80% saturated in terms of phone usage, but 130% of mobile accounts is high. But people still treat mobile like an infant. I think it's rubbish, because in 1997, I could text message a Coca-Cola vending machine, interact with their products. You have to experiment. Experimentation is necessary because these are the sort of ads you buy. We just took desktop quality ads and ran them on mobile. These are the sort of apps we have. I live in New York City. Look at that, man. A fire of Starbucks shows me an entire map of bloody North America, you shit. And if I look on the right, that is an app that I paid $1.99 for, which is how long I can hold down my thumb for on my iPhone screen for. That's the sort of shit we're buying, man. But here's what's really interesting. People download fewer apps, spend more time, more money on the apps they have. Average number of apps people download per month? 0. So what's fascinating is this. 70% of consumers will try your mobile experiences once. But the great news is, if you get it right, about 80% of them are going to fall in love with you. They become power users. So guess what? We move away from being awareness-based advertising into advocacy, where people give a shit about you and pass your brand on. So what can you do when you're always on, always with, always logged in? That's the sort of thing you want to think about. But think about Da Vinci's quote, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. Keep it simple. Because there are 3 things you can do. You're aware of what people are doing in the context of what they're doing it in. There's new data that you've already seen some of today. And the idea of this solo-mo, socially, locally, mobily connected, well, the reality is this, guys. It's not about solo-mo, it's about homo. Because 68%, and I could have had fun with this slide, I want to keep shit G-rated, but about 68% of mobile minutes are performed in the home because of the tablet. And the tablet's gone from being passive experience in front of the telly to being absolutely active. Because what happens, as you've already heard, people buy things with it. More than phones and more than desktops. And they also not just buy things, but they have a bigger cart value. And guess what? They cross-shop. So when you run your TV ads, it gives me permission to ignore you. Oh, ad, awesome, do something completely different. And that's what they do, they cross-shop. So supplemented is my advice. Augmented, love augmented reality. It gives us the ability to bring the 4th dimension of your brand. Bring your characters to life like this, National Geographic, genius. If you look at the Lego Digimirror, a bit better than the John Lewis one. Look at that, you hold the box up and it just builds it for you. And if you're standing near a 5-year-old, you just bought that shit, no doubt. Band-Aid. Couldn't be more pedestrian, but they teamed up with Muppets, did a limited edition Muppet series Band-Aid. You swipe your smartphone over it, you interact with the characters. This is the sort of usefulness I'm talking about. Toyota understand that kids love to be a backseat driver, so they actually built this app that allows kids to drive the back seat, the same contours of the road that the parents do. Awesome, but in a language they understand, cartoon. What about ads? The Internet Advertising Bureau. That's where we are today. There is a revolution happening there. And it's this. If you're building good digital shit, can we pass it on? Because that's the sort of thing we need to do. Is it the right person, right place, right time, right message? Yeah, almost. We need to think about the right messaging, because today we'll move away from generic advertising into influencer marketing. That's the power of social. We will move away from behavioral and assumption-based marketing into action specifics like this. Go into Google, check out something, pair of kicks, check out the Adidas, tab over to Facebook, fart around, the ad turns up. Behavioral retargeting, whoop-de-woo. Minimize your browser, pick up your cell phone, head to lunch, the path to purchase today is destroyed until this happens. You get a direct response from the brand saying, dude, there's a discount coupon, there's a map, get at it. That's the sort of thing we want. And then along came native, God bless it, the savior. In my day, this shit used to be called advertorials, FYI. But what's interesting is that we shouldn't be so naive about this, because advertising when natively is just making sure that you put your brand in very smart places. Simple example, Trulia, real estate property site targeted towards women. Mums and women's, they actually buy houses for us. Mattel owns Barbie. They took an editorial spread out. They took these beautiful photos of Mattel's house of Barbies, listed it for $25 million. And they did some paid advertising around the outside. That is absolutely genius. Let's skip this one. You've all seen it. If not, Google it. Amazing. So here's the deal. Marketing today is outpacing the behaviors of consumers. That's your opportunity. Consumers' behavior is outpacing what we're doing in marketing. I believe it's time for another revolution. But where are we off to next? And what the hell are we doing that's hot? Here's the deal. It's about brand experience. And what does that mean? You can do stuff today in brand experiences, environments that already matter. So this is just a simple example that happened in Europe, where they took a
newspaper holders prize the readers
and turned a newspaper holder into something that actually made sense.
Than the printed newspaper.
And what I mean by that is this. I talk over the commentary, then they shut the noise down on me. Awesome. So what's happening is they'll read about the news, but what gets updated is
still talking about the final at the America's
I get the hint, lads. Awesome. But what gets updated in an RSS feed is real-time information about it of print that's old. So it's taking an analog experience and turning it into something really revolutionary by being digital. You can hack shit every day with your brand. It doesn't have to be that large. It just needs to be that amazing. Check this out by DHL.
In many countries, DHL has more locations, more vehicles, and more employees. That's why DHL is faster. However, to communicate this with a classic advertising campaign is expensive. So why couldn't the competitors advertise for DHL? For that purpose, giant packages were taped all over with thermoactive foil and cooled down below the freezing point. In this way, the competitors picked up a black package that transformed back at temperatures above freezing and delivered the message in the most beautiful colors.
How genius is that? How about reinventing your product? Coke did a great job, not just recycling shit. They took a brand like Coke, said we want our bottles to be useful. They took the lids of every one of them in Vietnam and turned them into something of use, a bubble blower, a pencil sharpener. You know, these are the sort of things you can think about with your physical and digital experiences coming together, because it's about making shit human. I think the world will move beyond celebrity. Check this out. Right, so for those who haven't seen this, every single person in this is just an ordinary person with extraordinary skills. They become the brand ambassador for this brand. This is a McDonald's experience that they launched for the World Cup. It's absolutely remarkable. But what's also going to happen is today we're kind of limited to two wrists, one face, aren't we? I've seen a lot of that today. I think it'll move into these sort of things.
Have you ever noticed that the world's most powerful men don't carry a wallet? In fact, have you ever seen them pay for anything? Well, now you can join them. Introducing the MJ Bale Power Suit. In collaboration with Heritage Bank and Visa PayWave, we've developed the technology to embed a contactless payment chip and antenna into the sleeve of a suit. So now you can pay invisibly.
How about them apples? And is that... I'm going to skip that one. Google that too. It's awesome. Here's what's also crazy. This is Trident. This is a chewing gum company that teamed up with a Japanese designer. And when you put this jacket on, you put your cell phone in the pocket. It takes away the network, so it allows you to focus. Human conditions. I love that. I'm almost out of time, but I want to talk about a couple of other things with you. with all this immersive everything, you'll have built-in intelligence in all your devices that'll push you information when you need it. Right time, right place. And the wearable web will be super exciting for us. But the one thing I do know is this. Video will be everywhere. 90% of consumers online digest video. And it's all about this show me generation. Who would have thought that you can tell a story in 6 seconds to whatever length you now have? You are no longer limited to 30s and 60s, my dear friends. Here's a 6-second commercial. I think it's amazing. Genius. But here's the last thing I want to show. Here's the deal, man. Most people see me present. They're like, we don't have such a cool brand. What can we do? Well, here's an example of something that I saw come out. Check this.
Good, White. Good boy. Yeah. Good, White.
Turn on the ignition. Let's go. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Good boy, good boy.
Ride with me.
Good boy.
On the streets right now.
So, dog rescue company out of New Zealand just said, we think dogs are smart enough to drive. They built these 3 video experiences. Each one of them lasts about 3 minutes each. It's 9 minutes of brand love that'll never, ever, ever be a 30-second TV commercial. And here is the last point. I'm a artist, and I know you guys wanted to see that whole damn thing, didn't you? Red, blue, and yellow are the 3 primary colors that make up every painting in the universe. When you think about the 3 primary colors and what you're doing across digital, just think about technology, content, and distribution. And at the heart of that intersection is culture meets content. And to do that correctly, in my mind, it's all about making sure that we're experimenting, we're giving brands a new life, we're remixing and reframing, but we're also inventing ideas that can be distributed by putting smart content in smart places. Thanks very much indeed, guys. Cheers.
We've only just begun.